Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to add some authorization logic to our comic routes, specifically the edit, update, and delete routes. As of right now, if I go in here, I am not logged in, so let's see the Scooby comment right there. So let's log in as test, a different user, and I can delete Scooby's comments. That's obviously not the best. I can also, this one by the way, this comic is created by test. I can log in as Scooby with the password of do. Come in here and I can edit and delete this comic. That's obviously not good either. We don't want users to be able to delete things that don't belong to them. So we need to add some authorization to our routes. We're going to do this inside of the comics route because we're going to make it first for comics before we do anything with comments. And we're going to do it inside the edit route first, and then we can just move it elsewhere. So right now, whenever somebody tries to edit something, it's first checking if the user is logged in. If the user is logged in, it shows the form. It'll get the comic and then show the form. We don't want them to see this form to be able to even access it unless they are actually the owner of this comic. So the first step is to just define our steps, figure out exactly what we want to do, and I'm going to use comments to do this. So first we want to check if the user is logged in. Yes, I know we're already doing that right here. However, we're going to break this out into middleware later, so we're going to do it here as well. If not logged in, redirect to /login. If logged in, check if they own the comic. If not, we can just redirect them back, I guess. Redirect back to the show page. If owner, then render the form to edit. So our first step is just going to check if the user is logged in, and if you remember, we can do this with the isAuthenticated. So if request.isAuthenticated, kind of paste that right there. Check if they're authenticated. And else, so if not logged in, redirect them to /login. res.redirect/login. So if logged in, check if they own the comic. So in order to do that, we need to actually get the comic. And we already have the logic to do that right here. So we can just cut that and paste it up there. And now that we have the comic, we have to compare the comic owner's ID with the currently logged in user's ID. And if you remember from our model, let's look at comic. That information is going to be on comic.owner.id. Let's go ahead and log that to the console. Console.log comic. Oops, not a string. Comic.owner.id. And we also, just to log to the screen, console.log request.user._ID. And basically these are the two things we are checking to see if they match. So this is obviously not going to work yet, but it'll at least log things to the console. So let me log in, test, log in, and add a new comic because we don't have any to test. Let's get an actual ID from the seed. Rather get an actual image URL. And submit. So now we have this new comic. So in order to actually edit this comic, I need to hit the edit button. So edit, and this is not going to do anything. It's going to break. But before it breaks, we can see here that these two things match. The first one is the comic owner ID. The second one is the user ID, and these are the same. We can see that they're the exact same, so this user owns this comic. So now that we know that these are the exact same, or so we think, there's some foreshadowing for you. Now that we know these are the same, we can go ahead and use that to logically compare, well, if this matches this, then let them do it. If not, don't let them do it. And while I'm here, this error, by the way, is because I never commented out this try-catch block down there. That's why we got this error. So if these things match, do a thing. So if they're the owner, render the form. So we come down and we do if comic.owner.id is equal to request.user._id. So if the owner, render the form, which we can get from right down here, just res.render that. So if it's the owner, render the form, else they are not the owner, and therefore we're going to redirect back to the show page. Res.redirect back to, what was it, /comics/comic._id. And then we can get rid of all this. And now let's try this. I'll go ahead and let you know. It's gonna work, but it's not gonna work like we think. It's not gonna break, but the logic is not gonna work. This part where it checks the owner ID is not gonna work. So let's go to comics. I gotta log in. Remember, I did this with test. I log in, go here. Let's hit the edit button. It just sends me back, even though these are the exact same. What in the world's going on? Why is this not rendering? What's happening? Well, really, these are not the exact same. They look the same, but they're not the same behind the scenes. This is a very difficult bug to kind of troubleshoot, and it'll crop up every now and then. Even though I've had it several times and I've figured out the solution to it, it crops up every now and then, and I forget about it, and I have to go back and research it, and then I hit myself in the head saying, "Oh crap, I remember why." The reason is that comic.owner.id is a mongoose object. It's not a string. When it's printed, it shows the string, but it's not actually a string. So when we compare them using regular triple equals or even double equals, it's not going to return true. It's going to say, no, those are different because this one is an object and this one is a string. Fortunately, Mongoose is aware of this, and they know this is a problem, so they give us a method that we can use to compare things like this. So instead of using triple equals, comic.owner.id .equals EQUALS, and then you just pass in the thing that you're checking if it's the same. So if we update that and save, we're going to have to log back in. Log in. Test, log in. Now we click on it and hit edit. Works fine. That is the issue, is because those two things are different items, they're not actually equivalent. In this video, we did one main thing. We updated our item edit route so that users can only edit items that they actually created. They can no longer edit things that they didn't create. In the next video, we're going to break this logic out into some middleware so that we can use it in other routes, such as update and delete and things like that. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help. Thanks.